Welcome to The Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee. And today, I have the privilege of chatting with a fine artist, educator, sculptor. Please welcome Cindy Cheng. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Rob. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here and well prepared. That was great. That was great. So I want to start off. One, I dig your work. It's great. It was like I was looking at it. It was and please correct me what I'm going to say here, but I just remember it was like a finger, and I was like, okay, I need that. I need that as a gauntlet somehow. So when I grabbed the mic, you just see metallic. It's like it's going to be great. It's going to be great. But I said a few bullet points that I found online, and I want to have you introduce yourself and tell us how you got started in the arts and maybe your first experience in art making.
Sure. So I got started a little bit later. I didn't really do much sort of studio work until I think I was like a sophomore in college, and I needed to take a requirement. And I had to take an art class, and my roommate had taken, Jen, my roommate, had taken drawing one class, and it looked pretty fun, like she was doing some crazy things. And so I decided that I would take that drawing class to fulfill this, I forget what kind of requirement it was, but it was something. And it was, I was a little salty, honestly, about having to take it because I thought it would be like kind of just a waste of time, And I had so much fun in it. And I had an amazing instructor, Carlene Sheehan. She's wonderful. She's also a great artist. But she was so nurturing and supportive, and really encouraged people to be experimental and open and inquisitive, in a way that was super different than all of my other classes, which I went to a liberal arts college, so it was very, everything was academic,
Sure.
And then I found that I do actually weirdly enjoy writing essays, but I enjoyed making images more. So I switched tracks. And so that drawing class really sort of opened the doors for studio practice for me. But then I became a studio arts major, graduated college, but then I didn't really make work for 4 or 5 years after that because I just didn't feel the need to do it. So I just kind of stopped, and I did a little bit of travel, and then I'm from Hong Kong originally. So I went back to Hong Kong to stay with my family, and I got a job. And then I slowly started to make work again. And realized that I really missed it, and that I wanted to sort of reinvest myself in studio practice. So actually, Carlene Sheehan, my drawing teacher, we had kept in touch, and she was like, you really should apply for the Post-Baccalaureate program at MICA. I think it would be a good fit for you. Baltimore's a really interesting town. It's got a great art scene.
It does.
Yeah, it does. She was 100% right. And she was like, the Post-Bac program is good because it's like a 1-year program. It's less of a time commitment. You can sort of find your way and see if this is really what you want to invest your time and energy into. And then if you do, then you can pursue, an MFA, or you can just sort of establish your own practice, whatever, So I followed her advice, and I came to Baltimore to do the Post-Baccalaureate program at MICA. And it was an amazing experience. It was a really formative year. I had a great time in the studio. I grew a lot, and I played a lot. Bill Schmidt was our director of the program, along with Linda Bills, who's his sort of partner in crime, co-director. And they were wonderful. And we had a great sort of slew of visiting artists. Mike Holhart was amazing. I met my husband. And then it just sort of I went from there, and then I ended up also doing my MFA at MICA in the Mount Royal School. Which is the interdisciplinary program, which is where I started. So I was doing a lot of drawing and just sort of two-dimensional image making, pretty traditional. but it was really fun, but then when I got to my MFA program, I was really pushed to expand my practice and my language and, really interrogate what drawing could mean, why was I making an image, all of this kind of like really fundamental stuff that I had just taken for granted.
Sure.
And so that was when I started to do things that were a little more sculptural, and it was like small kind of, experiments at first that slowly began to become more and more object oriented and then spatial, So yeah, that was kind of my trajectory. Yeah. It was really unpredictable. Like I had an idea that I was going to sort of go from high school into college for like, English lit, or something like that. And then, I don't know, I was like interested in journalism, but it just didn't pan out that way. So,
well, sometimes it's not the direct path which gets you to the place you need to be at.
Yeah.
I wanted to be an
Absolutely.
astronaut when I was a kid.
That's a great dream.
And I'm a podcaster now. How does that work? Maybe I can combine the two when I'm, a couple years from now. It's like,
Well, they need chroniclers, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Sure. You're,
yeah.
The truth in the space. Like, no, that's terrible, actually. Just a lot of me eating paste. I don't know. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Dipping dots.
Dipping dots, yeah.
So is this true? I read that you enjoy puzzles and are interested in learning more about what your friends collect. Have you learned anything about your friends from learning about what they enjoy collecting? And secondly, do you consider yourself a creative problem solver?
Okay, so my friends, my friend Marianne actually collected things for me. She collected some teeth because she knows that I use weird things in my work, But I think like as artists, we all accumulate. Like we're kind of like pack rats, And I think that accumulation is really kind of important for sort of just like, either you look at it for inspiration or, it sort of makes its way into your paintings or your drawings or they become props, or they become part of assemblages or whatever. They're a cast of characters that you can bring into your work to play a role,
Sure.
So I think that we have a natural tendency to hoard. And I think that for me personally, like my collections have evolved a lot throughout my sort of studio practice, depending on sort of my interests, particularly my material interests, although recently with the whole conspiracy theory stuff, like I'm starting to, my collections are changing again. But with my friends, I think I was able to see that more in grad school, because our studios were together. Once we graduated, my studio's over in Greektown, and while there are quite a few people there, we sort of keep to ourselves. So I haven't been able to actually like go into people's studios, and then the pandemic hit and all that stuff, But I do think when we were in school and we were spending a lot of time in each other's studios, I did learn a lot about people from their collections. I have a fantastic artist friend who ended up going back she's from Maine. She's an amazing gardener. And she and her husband, John, her name is Sarah, ended up going back to Maine where they started a brewery. And she has this like, it's kind of like a farm. Like she has a farm, where she grows like flowers and they grow their own hops and stuff like that. But anyway, she's a great collector, and she really knows how to nest, so her collections, I feel like, make their way into her living spaces. But I felt like that was part of how I got to know her, My other good friend who used to be my studio mate, John Latiano, who's an amazing artist, is also another like really refined collector. I'm like kind of slash and burn collecting, I just like hoard and there's very little rhyme or reason. John is like a curator, it is pristine and it reflects, I think, his personality and his way of thinking, So I do think that the way people orient themselves to the objects around them and what they choose to keep, like I do think that says something about their personality, who they are, what their interests are, how they think and function in the world,
Yeah. That's great. I mean, I look at some of the stuff that I have. I get rid of cables very quickly. It's like, this looks ugly. And talking about as far as like my practice in doing this audio stuff. And if a cable looks weird, it's gone.
Yeah.
But I have my original mixer from like 2009.
Yeah.
That's still sitting there.
That's awesome.
The tech is dead. It's trash. One of my buddies wrote something stupid on there, and I left it on there. He put a sticker on it. He called it a universal fart machine, and I was like, sure. I was like, yeah, sure. That's exactly what that is. That I'm putting my hopes and dreams into.
Yeah.
So the other part of it, do you fashion yourself as a creative problem solver?
Yeah. I mean, anyone who has, I think everybody is a creative problem solver, really. You know, I mean, you kind of have to be, right? You would think.
Yes, I had to MacGyver this situation earlier because I did not have an SD card at work.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think like any problem solving is creative problem solving, you know, even if it's like, I don't know, something that's very technical or very practical or something like that. I feel like it's kind of rare to just exactly follow the instructions. You're always making little changes, or you're doing something that's responding to a nuance of the situation or something like that. You lose a tool that you need, and you have to like MacGyver it or whatever, you know. So I think to some extent everyone creatively problem solves. I don't think that you can function well without being able to do that.
And I think that's huge here because we have a lot of makers, a lot of DIY stuff, and there's also a lot of scarcity.
Yeah.
So out of necessity, it's like, I got to figure out a different way to do this.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Anyone who has to like, absolutely. I mean, I think scarcity is a big thing, right? Like anyone who has to like survive on not enough needs to creatively problem solve, you know, or else how do you survive, you know? So I think maybe some people have to do it more, and like for me, creative problem solving for the most part is quite pleasurable, you know, because I'm doing it in the studio, you know. But I think for some folks, it's not so much a pleasure. It's like a real life thing, you know, that you just have to do, but you're still doing it, you know.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
So, like many artists that I've interviewed, you have MICA connection. You have the MICA connection, and Baltimore's become your adopted home. What makes Baltimore really stick for you? Like, what and how is it being an artist here?
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, before I came to Baltimore, I think that the longest amount of time that I ever spent in a city was 4 years, and then I would move, you know. And I've been in Baltimore since 2008, you know. I know. So there is something about Baltimore that every time I think about leaving, I'm just like, I can't leave, you know. And I think part of it is like, you know, as an artist, like what you said, you know, as an artist, Baltimore is a really amazing city. You know, we have incredible makers and creative thinkers here. We have insane resources for the size of the city. Everyone is very warm and welcoming and friendly. You know, like I've entered various different sort of like creative spaces that sometimes they don't really overlap. Like I work at Baltimore Clayworks, you know, and I'm doing stuff at the Jewelry Center now, you know, and I work at Pyramid Atlantic doing paper. And like maybe some people know each other, but they don't really overlap that much. But everyone is very welcoming, you know, and it's like it hasn't been stressful or weird to enter those places for the first time. You know, it's accessible. I think Baltimore is still a city where you can get space for, you know, it's still affordable. You know, you can get some space, right? If you're lucky like me and have a full-time job, you can get a really nice space, you know? So, but I wouldn't be able to do this, I think, in New York. Like, it would be a very different equation, you know?
It's accessible in that way where you have some big city accessibility, and sometimes those resources aren't allocated in a way that's indicative of the population at times, and that kind of stinks. But I think also people are really being able to do a lot with minimal that are there, and there is this hope and this desire that you can get to something. Like, you know, this is a project that's not really funded or what have you, and I can figure it out. Like, you know, having this as a space, having a salary, as you were touching on. Like, oh yeah, I can afford my equipment and put all of my stuff in a little fanny pack, and boom, there's the studio. Studio's wherever I'm at.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You make it work, and the city allows you to make it work, So I think that has been a big reason why I've stayed, And I also love the people, Like, I really haven't met anyone. Well, I mean, I'm human. I dislike some people, but like for the most part, I've loved most of the people that I've met here. Like I've made some really great friends, and even people who have moved away, I still keep in touch with, and I don't do that usually.
Community is a thing here.
Yeah, it really is, and it's really wonderful. I can't imagine leaving.
I'm gonna try to make audible gasp a part of my podcast moving forward. Whenever someone says something, I'm just all my stars and garters are just grabbing my pearls, clutching my pearls. So I read that you're a 2017 Sondheim Award winner.
Yeah.
How has your career and change from that recognition? And could you share some of the more memorable highlights of your career so far?
Yeah. So that was the first kind of like big award that I've won. Like up until then, I was shocked, because I usually don't, like I wasn't winning anything, like I would get a show here and there, but it was overall just like, oh, I'm just doing this for myself, like I didn't really have an audience. So that was really surprising and really wonderful. And I mean, it's a decent monetary award, and so that helped me a lot. And 2017, I think I had just gotten hired full time. So I was still, a little strapped for cash, and like it really helped me make some work, and I upgraded my studio. It was wonderful. I mean, just professionally, for my practice, it was a game changer, and I also used some of that money to go to some summer workshops at the craft schools. So I went to Haystack and I went to Arrowmont, and I learned some skills there that have become really fundamental to what I'm doing now. So that was also a game changer, So yeah, I mean that just getting some hard cash is big, and people can, if you put that towards your practice or towards bills or whatever, it can really smooth the way and like help you sort of make some new discoveries in your work, And then also, I mean, it was a morale bump, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like most of us are probably better than the general public with dealing with like rejection, just because it's such a big part of. I
can't take it at all. Oh, everyone hates me. Sure. Oh my God, I don't want to do.
Yeah. But it does take a toll on your your self-esteem, your sort of just motivation. So getting something like that, I was like, okay, I had more steam in the tank, so yeah. So that was really nice.
So that's a natural segue right there. You would think you had the questions at one point. So with that, this is a really apt question to ask. I've heard about taking breaks, but doing something, I think the recent version of I've heard is you take a break, but do something that's still creative, but not necessarily your practice, because you still want to keep your mind sharp in that way.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts around that, and how do you overcome creative burnout?
Yeah, I mean, so like I mentioned earlier, I took a big break after undergrad. So it was like a years-long break, and the job that I got was working at a gallery, but it didn't have much to do with like the actual art stuff. Like I was writing a lot of press releases. I was doing a lot of the writing, and I didn't really have much contact with like the artists or anything like that. So it was a very different sort of aspect of the art world, I guess, you know. And it was also in Hong Kong, which I think Hong Kong's art scene has made a lot of sort of, has grown a lot recently. But back in like, when was this? Like 2005 or something like that. It was still relatively small and insular. So it was a very different kind of vibe, you know, but it was still creative, you know, and it was challenging. And I was learning how to speak Cantonese, which I'm terrible at speaking Cantonese. And so I was like working on that too. You know, I'm still terrible. It didn't really succeed. Me too. Yeah, we're probably at the same level. So that was really good. But actually being around all of the art, even though I didn't personally maybe like a lot of it, you know, but being around sort of that creativity, you know, and seeing work coming in and like, you know, because I would be there for like shipments and stuff like that. It did get me back into the mindset of like, oh, I kind of miss it, you know, and I want to be one of the artists. I don't necessarily want to be the one writing the press releases, you know. So I think maybe I was burned out after college, you know. I work pretty hard, you know, so you know, burnout is just kind of a thing. And I needed that break, but staying in an art sort of adjacent job helped keep my sort of head in the game, you know. And then when I was sort of like mentally ready to get back into it, it was right there, you know.
I dig it.
Yeah. So I think that was a really nice way to use that time, I think, you know. And then I think it's also, you know, there's multiple ways to deal with burnout because, like, you know, like right now I'm kind of burned out from school, you know, like I know, right? Shocker. And especially with like just COVID and everything, it's been, I mean, I think everyone is burned out.
I feel like we never had a real, because I work in higher ed as well. And I've been mentioning, I was like, I don't know if we've had you know how you get to the end of the year and it's like, oh, everything is smooth. Not really.
No, I don't think we've really had a breather, you know, for like 2.5 years or something like that. So I think everyone's just like really kind of fried. And so to deal with that, like, I mean, I don't feel like I need to stop making work. I just need a change of pace, you know, and I think that might be a good way to deal with burnout as well. And it's something that I've done in the past. Like when I was adjuncting, there was a lot of burnout with that too, because it's a grind, you know, and it's a different type of labor, but it's really intense. And so after a few years of doing that, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. You know, like it was just so hard. And I was like really poor. Like, you know, it was just like really hard. And the instability of it all, oh man, it was just like really tough, you know, and we didn't have a union at the time. So it was real hard. And, so I applied to residencies and I ended up getting a residency at Anderson Ranch in Colorado. Oh, wow. And I was not going to take it because I was afraid of losing my part-time jobs, you know, my teaching jobs. Because I was just like, if I don't teach for a semester, I'm going to lose those positions. And I worked really hard to establish that, you know. So I was talking to my chairs and I was telling them this and they were excellent. They were like, that's, you know, ridiculous. And you should absolutely go and do this. And, you know, don't forget that you're here to teach art, you know, and you need to foster your own practice to teach it, you know. So you can't sacrifice that and the jobs will be here for you when you get back, you know. Which was really wonderful. Yeah. So I took a semester off and I went from teaching and I went to Anderson Ranch and just focused on my practice. And that was like rejuvenating, you know.
And that's a thing that is needed. And I'm glad that you had that opportunity to do that because even what I'm doing, I talk to artists, I just talk. And but I think being able to dive into maybe things to expand my mind or what have you, like consuming books. I don't know if I really sit there and read, but I'll put the audiobook on and I'll make that happen. And it's just like, oh, okay, I'm hearing this for a reason. Oh, that sparked that question. That's an interesting insight. And going there and being around other artists in other places. Like the last time, and I have some travel coming up, but the last time that I traveled, that's how I am able to get re-dipped and re-engaged. Yeah. So that would be part of that for me as far as you don't want to ask the same stale questions. That's one of my biggest fear that either I mixed up someone or I asked like, yeah, so when you were making like tambourines, right? It's like, I don't make those. Oh, word? Boom. So, you know, that's a thing. And I think when like, so this is so I do 3 podcasts. This is one of the other podcasts that I do. And they kind of serve because they require different things of me. Like this is, you're talking with another person and it's not really improv. It's kind of structured. There are questions, there's formats, there, you know, it's that. And then the other one is I'm just improving, taking news stories and trying to make things funny.
Yeah.
And the other one is, and that one is very time sensitive. And then there's another one where I'm like going over the history of movies and
awesome.
really breaking
Yeah.
down the trivia. So they require different things,
Yeah.
which they're all in the same universe under an umbrella, but they require different things of me. And that's really cool. But I think with this one, not being around in the scene and kind of missing things because galleries weren't open and people weren't putting out work in that traditional sense, you're kind of just having conversations and living by proxy and people's experiences. But I think as things have opened up and community is kind of communitying, you're able to see people and have substantive conversations that can later spark conversation and spark insights.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think that part of the reason why residencies are so important for writers and artists and musicians and, you know, anyone who has sort of creative production as part of their life is because of those sort of communal, you know, things, you know, like you meet new people with new ideas, you get to talk things over. And I do think it's very inspirational, you know, like you are, I feel like it's inevitable that people are going to make an impact on the direction of your work, you know, make an impact on your patterns of thinking, you know. I feel like I definitely fall into habits, you know, and, you know, grooves get made and you just go down that same groove.
Those
and it gets deeper
pathways.
and deeper, you know? Yeah. So having new ideas, alien ideas come at you, you know, that you would never have thought of yourself, you know, like that's incredibly important to sort of like bump you out of those ruts, you know?
So with that, I have one last question for you before I get to my rapid fire ones. You don't even know about those. So this is the last real question I have for you. Do you embrace your strangeness, those qualities that make you unique? How do you embrace it if you do?
You know, I've never really thought about that before. I just kind of follow what I'm curious about, you know, and I've never thought of myself as weird. Like, I know some weird people, like genuinely, truly strange people, and I love them. Like, they're, you know, I have some friends who I'm just like, these are the weirdest people I've ever met, you know, and they're wonderful, you know, and I just like, I'm super normal compared to them in my mind, you know, but then I also know myself, and I've lived with myself my whole life, so I don't think I'm weird, you know. But I think that I have, like, you know, I guess I have certain urges that are a little strange with especially with my work, you know. I like weird imagery, you know. I'm drawn to strange stories and phenomena, you know.
Okay.
So
take this down real quick.
And those things are just like really fascinating to me. But I follow them, you know. So I try not to censor myself too much, you know. So maybe that facilitates sort of strangeness and the growth of that, you know, in the studio. But I think in my normal life, I'm like super ordinary. I'm very like, you know, like not very remarkable.
When I slide the glasses down, it means I don't know if I agree, but go on. Okay. Yeah. I appreciate that. I think the strangeness and the uniqueness kind of conversation, that's one that that's really a question that I've been kind of balancing and trying to understand because, you know, like, no one's going to do the same thing I'm doing. No one's going to view it and ask the question the same way I'm going to ask it. And I was like, I need to really enjoy that that's just uniquely me. And that might not fit into everyone's concept of what a podcaster is, what a black podcaster, what a podcaster from Baltimore might be.
Right.
And I just have to live with that strangeness and enjoy that. I'm an Aquarius, so we got to be strange, gang.
Yeah.
All right. So I got some questions for you here.
Okay. All right.
So you know how rapid fire works.
Do you just ask me and then I just answer, like immediately answer?
And they're very random questions.
Okay. Too. Okay. Let's do it.
I'm going to start off out of order.
Okay.
Are you a morning person or a night person?
That's really hard because, okay.
What's 2 a.m.? That's technically both, right?
This is tough. This is genuinely tough because I teach and all my classes are in the morning. So I have to get up in the morning, but I'm salty about it.
So you're a night person.
But then I have to go to bed at like 10 o'clock because I got to get up at like 5:30.
Oh, you're...
You know? But I'm salty about that too.
I think you're really a night person.
I might be a night person who's being forced to be a morning person.
You're just like a vampire that just can't commit. I get it. It's fine. It's fine. Name a gadget that changed your life.
God, I hate to say like my phone.
Yes.
My phone, because I listen to a lot of podcasts, you know, and like in the studio, I don't listen to music. I'm not a music person.
Okay.
I know. That's kind of shameful, especially in Baltimore, which is such a great music town.
You're kind of skipping ahead there, Cindy.
Oh, really?
I don't like that.
Okay.
I don't like that. Music, podcast, silence in the studio. Well, I'll frame it differently. What are you listening to currently? And there is a wrong answer here.
Oh, really? I listen to all your podcasts.
Oh, okay, great. See? Tone the company line. I love it.
I listen to a lot of, so this is very responsive to my current interests in the studio. And so I've been listening to a lot of conspiracy podcasts. And so like QAnon Anonymous is great, you know. What's it? Oh my God, Conspirituality is really good. American Hysteria is fantastic. I love American Hysteria. Actually, I highly recommend. It's really well researched. I can't remember anyone's names, but the person who hosts and does all the production for it is just like such a great communicator and storyteller, and their research is just like top notch. I've started listening to Evangelical. Straight White American Jesus is very good.
Very specific.
Yes, and there's a few more, but I can't remember their names. I did just start listening to one that's called Hi-Fi Nation? Hi-Fi Nation, yeah. And it's a podcast that was created by a philosophy professor at Vassar College. And so it's philosophy explorations through narrative format, and it's really good. It's good for someone who, I never took a philosophy class, total like rube with philosophy, so it's like perfect for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I think you're gonna like. I'm gonna save my favorite two that I just added for last.
Okay.
So the next one is describe your teaching style in 5 words or less.
Anti-authority.
That was very quick. That was the most rapid of them all. All right. Tell me a rumor that you want to start.
A rumor I want to start. Oh my God.
People always waffle on this one. It's great.
Oh, jeez. I don't know. I'm so adverse to rumors.
That Truth in His Art is the greatest podcast. That'd be a great. Really? Who said that? Cindy Cheng said that? Oh, wow.
I don't know. Do I get a pass?
Sure.
No,
I don't get too many of those.
No. I can't pass. That's lame. I can't pass. Hold on. Give me a second. A rumor that I see. I don't have a lot of.
Because conspiracy things stuck out for me. That's why I threw the rumor question in.
I know, and you would think that, but maybe because of this conspiracy research, I'm like rumor adverse. You know. The rumor I would set out is that
Robert is really Robert the doll. That's a creepy story.
Is that a real?
Yeah, it was a doll that actually was alive. That's the story, like Annabelle, but his name was Robert the doll.
Really?
Yeah.
So nothing to do with you?
No.
Oh, okay.
We just share a name. It's great. It's great.
Okay, I can't think of anything.
No worries.
I can't think of anything. Yeah.
Then this one. This is the last one I have for you. Folklore or nonfiction? And if it is folklore, what is your favorite piece of folklore, like favorite story or what have you?
Folklore, for sure.
Yeah.
Again, I think I've always liked folklore, but with this whole conspiracy thing and, you know, so much of it being it is folklore,
Yeah.
you know, like I think my interest in it has just sort of amped up. I really enjoy anything that has to do with the occult, you know. I love it. I love it so much. And I can't think of anything specific, but I do really enjoy monsters, so like chupacabra, you know, all of that kind of like Lovecraftian stuff, you know, I love that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I play D&D, so it really kind of like, you know,
We're gonna have a very
flows
nerdy
into
conversation after this, I think. This has been great. So I want to thank you for being on this podcast.
Oh my God, thank you for inviting me.
And two, you're welcome. And two, I want to invite and encourage you to tell the fine folks where to check you out, your work, your website, all that good stuff. And thank you again.
Wait, you want me to say something about my...
Yeah, plug yourself.
Plug
where you're
plug
at.
myself?
Yeah. Which sounded really weird. Can you promote yourself, please? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a great website, but I do have an Instagram.
You do. That's how I
I
felt.
do have an Instagram, and I'm very active on Instagram.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, and so check my Instagram out. Do I need to give my
Tell me
handle?
Instagram.
Or,
Yeah.
it's just Cindy HK Cheng.
Uh-huh.
You can just look me up, maybe. And I show a lot of the real reason why I really enjoy Instagram is because I feel like artists have really taken to it and show their process and their practice. And I've learned a lot, actually, technical stuff from Instagram, you know. And I've also reached out to artists to ask them questions. Like if I'm having an issue with like something in ceramics or, you know, whatever, I've gotten a lot of advice from artists. So it's really excellent. Yeah, it's great.
So there you have it. Hit Cindy up. Ask her a bunch of questions. Time for you to return the favors. So for Cindy Cheng, I am Rob Lee saying that there is art in and around Baltimore. You just got to look for it.